Consultation Podcast Network.
They're us. We're them, they're us. They're us.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum podcast. I'm Ryan from Cultsploitation.com, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
And we're here with another episode of Remakeoween. We're on to episode number 3, and it is September 20th and 21st when this episode will air, so we've still got a lot of time to get through some remakes. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we got one more for the month.
One more for September, and then obviously we move into Halloween territory with October, where it's going to get very busy. We have a lot in store for the show, and actually we're going to be doing a special episode in October as well. So you're going to get like more bang for your buck, and you don't even pay anything. So it's a good deal for you, that's for sure.
The Black Friday special here.
That's right.
Coming early.
Last week we did It. Hopefully everybody liked that show. Really curious to see what everybody else had to say about It. So definitely make sure that you write into us at our Facebook page, Twitter, at our email address, bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about It. And hopefully you enjoyed that episode.
I can tell you that It was fabulous. If you didn't listen to last episode.
I know if you didn't listen, go back and listen to it now, since you've probably seen it by now. So go back and listen and let us know what your thoughts were on the movie and how you feel like it's going to move into part 2, which, spoiler alert, there will be one.
It's supposed to be, I was reading online, apparently they're promising it'll be even scarier.
I would be okay with that.
And more gruesome.
I mean,
which makes sense because I think even still in 2017, I don't think a lot of people would be head over heels in love with a film that was about child violence.
Yeah, even like in It, when they have the rock war scene, it's kind of almost humorous in the fact that like kids are getting belted in the head with rocks, and that sounds like a pretty dangerous game all around.
Well, fun fact, used to do that as a kid.
Yeah.
At least I did.
I never did. I got hit in the head with a rock one time. It sucked.
We did, not with rocks as big as, because in It, they're fucking huge. That's like nearly Boulder War.
I don't buy that somebody gets hit in the head and shrugs it off and they're like, it hurt a little bit.
Yeah, no, rock wars, acorn wars.
Acorns, sure.
Those still hurt like a son of a bitch.
They do. They still hurt, but not as bad as rocks.
Well, like I said, we were throwing like gigantic ones, like little.
You guys didn't have anything better to do than just pick up and chuck rocks? poor kids in small towns, I guess, right?
Well, I mean, you reached... Every parent has a threshold on how many times you come in and out of the house, and once you hit that, that parent's threshold...
Get the fuck out of this house.
You're out. You don't, stop running in and out.
Sure.
And so you had to create your own fun. No more Sonic and Sega Genesis for you. Get your ass out there.
Yeah, makes sense, I guess. Today we're back with a remake of another film that we've covered in the past. We did the original film for Night of the Living Dead not too long ago, actually. I want to say like maybe a couple months ago, after George Romero passed away. And we're back today with the remake.
Kind of a thread here.
That's right. We're kind of covering everything that we've once covered before. So we're doing the 1990 Night of the Living Dead remake by Tom Savini, and actually it was written by George Romero as well. So it's still very much in line with the original film. Almost sort of. Sometimes you see directors and writers do this. Remake their own films or try to revamp them a little bit for the time.
And I'm not a fan of that.
Well. I think it depends. It definitely depends on what they're doing. And
I think this is different because it's Savini's project. George just kind of retweaked the script to, fit the early 90s.
Yeah, more contemporary.
But I don't like the idea of filmmakers going back and tinkering. That's why I like people don't like George Lucas. Like, stop.
Yeah.
We don't need you
because
constantly tinkering.
Once it's done and it's out there,
That's it. Leave it alone.
That's it. And it was done. And if you didn't like it, well, then you have a chance to go and make a different movie where you can adjust and make sure that you do the things that you wanted to do for the other film that you weren't as impressed with. And so when you have people like that who are constantly trying to go back and say, well, this is now part of the canon. That becomes a problem, especially for something like Star Wars, which has such an impact on
Blade Runner's another one.
Yeah,
with
Blade Runner.
The whole unicorn bit.
Yep.
Basically, spoiler, how, Decker's not an android.
Yeah.
But then you got, Ridley Scott tacking on the unicorn at the end. He's saying, no, he is, this is what he's supposed to be. And now it's going to make, 2049. Let's see where that goes.
Well, I think that the idea of remaking your original film and putting out a director's cut is a little bit different.
No, that is different. No, that's totally different, because there's some films that could definitely use an editing overhaul to make for a better film, or
And to be honest with you, it also depends with the director's cut on whether that was actually the intended cut that was butchered by producers or whatever, and they said, nope, we're not running this one. We're going to run this other edited cut that we decided, against your wishes, was the theatrical version, the one that's going to go to theaters.
Which, but again, that's another one. Blade Runner's another example. The original theatrical cut is not good.
Right.
The director's cut and several cuts afterwards are, good cuts. One that really sticks out to me too is like Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. The theatrical cut of that is not good, but Peckinpah's actual director's cut makes the film to be a very good Western.
Then you have those director's cuts where not much changes.
They tack on like two scenes.
There's like a couple of like conversations, and sometimes that can make for a different experience. But for the most part, it doesn't do a whole lot. Like I watched Manhunter, Scream Factory's Manhunter release.
I've always wanted to see that.
It's a good film. Okay,
I love the idea of I'm drawing a blank.
A pre-Silence of the Lambs.
No, but Brian, who plays
Hannibal?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the actor's name. He's going to be in Super Troopers 2 again.
Yeah, I can't remember his the guy's
Brian
name who plays it.
Blank,
but in that, like, I watched the original Manhunter and then I watched the director's cut. Didn't notice the difference. I was like, what were the scenes that were added? I don't know. What was cut? What was added? I have no idea. Didn't notice the difference. So you have like stuff like that.
Brian Cox.
Oh, Brian Cox, yeah. So I think that director's cuts and remakes of your own film are a little bit different.
You're using the same footage, so it's not a remake.
Yeah, but Night of the Living Dead is definitely a remake and a nearly shot-for-shot storyline remake. Besides a couple of changes, especially more towards the conclusion, which we'll talk about when we get into this a little bit more. But it's basically, a shot-for-shot remake of Night of the Living Dead with George Romero doing a little bit more tweaking to the script, trying to give a little bit more depth to it.
For better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. I mean, because like as we talked about in our episode on the original Night of the Living Dead, a lot of that exposition is really like cut aside. There's, you have that opening scene, doesn't really have much bearing. You don't really know why it's happening. All of a sudden, it's just they're visiting a cemetery at a strange hour of like dusk, and then all of a sudden, zombies pop out, and that's it. And that's pretty much go from there. And you don't get much more exposition than that. And you just see in Night of the Living Dead, in the 1990 version, George Romero's taken a little bit further, trying to give a little bit more exposition, trying to I guess give a little bit more meaning to some of the things that happen in the film. And like you said, it's either for better or worse, and we'll kind of talk about that later on. But I really wanted to just, in this intro, make known that This is a shot-for-shot remake, and I didn't really know that because I hadn't seen the 1990 version of that.
Neither have I. And I'm kind of surprised this has never really cropped up on TV, because it seems like something like around Halloween time, like UPN or the CW would be, especially back in the late 90s when they were doing like Leprechaun, marathons and stuff like for Halloween. Like this would be like somewhere make the schedule.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it was, even like now that we're moving forward and zombies have become a lot bigger part of horror as a whole, thanks to like The Walking Dead and
For better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. It's surprising that, the 1990 version doesn't get a little bit more airtime because now
it is. I think actually with the way this film is, it fits more in line with modern zombie films and comics and games than the original Night of the Living Dead does.
For sure, I think that
and I think this has part to do with it, because
it's almost a prelude to some of Romero's later Dead films, but also really much more in line with like The Walking Dead. You can definitely see the jump from Night of the Living Dead 1990 to like Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead series, and that zombies are a lot more messed up, deterioration wise, and there is more of an action feeling to it.
You know what I don't get? It was a little off topic, but thought came to me. Why in The Walking Dead are they called walkers? Does in that universe zombies, like the idea and concept and the word itself, not exist?
In the actual comic, they do use the word zombies. They're used. So
I know, but like
a stylistic choice.
Literally in the TV shows, like walkers, Walker, Texas Rangers out there. Carl.
I think that it all boils down to something that
branding.
Surprisingly, Night of the Living Dead 1990 doesn't. I mean, it does touch on it, but it doesn't become like a huge theme throughout. Is that they don't want to call them zombies?
They don't do that. Well, they don't do that either in the Romero films, but that makes more sense.
Yeah,
like just because like of what's going on in the universe. But I mean, like literally, because they don't ever ascribe a term in the Romero universe to what they are.
There's nothing. Yeah,
they say the undead, and it's that's only like during like news bulletins and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas in The Walking Dead, they're really assigning a term to what they are.
I think it's because they don't want to call them zombies because they don't want to take away the idea that there could possibly still be humanity in them. Because that's a big part of The Walking Dead.
I know, but
and people understanding I have to overcome this guilt I feel about destroying this thing that once was a person because now it's not. And they would in that case they would do better to call them zombies so that people could get over that. Yeah. You know what I mean? No, they're not walkers. They're just fucking zombies.
No, that's not your sister. Just that's a zombie.
Right. Yeah, they would do better for that. But I think that's kind of the reasoning behind don't call them zombies, call them walkers. Well,
if they did that, then the show wouldn't last the 25 seasons that's going to. I got a feeling, and I don't know how the ratings are for The Walking Dead. I don't know if it's slipping or not.
Yeah, they're slipping.
I feel like it should be because I've stopped watching after season 3 or 4. I can't remember. Mm. But it's like...
Well, they're slipping and...
But I know, though, from following, from what, just the new stuff, it's literally the same fucking season except in a different location.
Yeah, and then with the Fear of the Walking Dead, then it becomes now you're blowing through ideas because you've got two of the same show doing the same thing.
Cannibalizing their own franchise.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I mean, no, but it's true, though. They are.
It is true.
I mean, they probably could have actually milked it. I can almost see, though, I can almost see and this is, again, we're a little off topic, but it does fit with what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
I almost can see, The Walking Dead being Simpsons and South Park. South Park, not so much, because South Park is still consistently funny, but everyone bitches and moans about how Simpsons haven't been funny in 20 years. People are still watching it, though, for some reason. still on TV.
Yeah.
If it wasn't drawing ratings and making money for Fox, it wouldn't be on TV anymore.
Yeah,
they're not beholden to nostalgia. It's like, well, people, would be really mad if we canceled The Simpsons. No, it's, So I feel like the reality, not reality, but like drama, actually live action TV series that's going to end up like that, like The Simpsons, it's going to be The Walking Dead. You're going to be like season 30, like, why is it still on? Don't know. They've been doing the same thing forever.
It's going to be
but it's
The
still
Walking
on.
Dead itself.
I see what you did there.
That's
Like
right.
we're full of wordplay here.
We're punny.
We could be writers.
All right, let's take a break, and we're going to come back. Got a new beer for you on the show, so stay with us.
You're welcome.
Ever wonder what happened to the actor from the 80s movie that you love? What about the director of the 70s splatter film that turned your stomach? Or how about the model that starred in your favorite MTV video? I'd like to invite you to join me, Sean Riley, the host of Second Acts podcast, on the first of each month as we check in with some of the most memorable faces you've forgotten to see what's going on in the second acts of their lives. You can check out Second Acts podcast on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page for bonus content as well as ways to interact with the show. F. Scott Fitzgerald once wrote, "There are no second acts in American lives, but there are on Second Acts podcast."
All right, guys, so we got a new beer on here for you. We've been promising this one for a while, so yeah, drum roll, please. We're talking about Adirondack Octoberfest.
Hooray!
Which is a local brew. They're from Lake George, New York.
Because when you think the Adirondacks,
You think Lake George?
well, at least people around here do.
Yeah.
It's kind of right in the heart.
It's the hometown of the Adirondack chair.
In the tourist trap.
No, I made that up, but
Albert the Leather. Oh, that's us.
yeah. So Adirondack Oktoberfest, we had it before. Martin had it actually at the location at Adirondack Brewery.
They make a fine French dip sandwich.
Yeah, they make a good. Yeah, you know what?
Hell of a great French dip.
You know
sandwich.
why? Because they put horseradish on that.
Well, you're supposed to. They did at Brown's.
Delicious.
Well, they did at Brown's too.
Yeah, but they're both really good.
I know.
So you had it at Adirondack Brewery. I had it on tap at one of our local brew pubs.
The one.
the one that we've got, and we both thought it was really tasty. So we wanted to do it for the show and actually have it on the show, because it's hard when you have a beer outside of the show, when you're not drinking it on the show and you're trying to discuss it and you're like, well, what did that taste like? And then you kind of get confused. So we like to have it present with us when we talk about it on the podcast. But this is it was hard to find too, right?
I just saw it.
Just saw it.
And
So
it wasn't at a grocery store. I think it was at one of our gas stations around here.
yeah, it's not super easy to find it.
But I will say, though, the gas station where I got it at, they when it comes to like local beers, they do have like quite a few. Like they're always one of the first to get like the Jenny pilot batches or the Springbok or the Oktoberfest.
Yeah, it seems like they really go out of their way to kind of grab those types.
Druthers, both Druthers beers that I've seen, because they're based out of Saratoga. And until I think just a couple months ago, they started finally making 6-packs and selling them at stores. Because I've seen them at other stores, but the first place I saw it at was at this place. They had like their IPA and their Ghosts, or the two beers I've seen in 6-packs. So they really get the local breweries around here often. So I wasn't surprised that it was the first place I've seen their Adirondack seasonal at.
Yeah, no, it's good that they get that stuff. I like that. I don't go there that often, so I didn't see it, but it's like, and they really try. They're really Adirondack-y there, I would say too. So,
well, no, that's the mobile down there.
Well, the mobile too, but
they're literally.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guess Adirondack-y in the sense that rednecks go there, then yeah.
Exactly. They got a new video sign out front that just depicts a bunch of hunting.
Deer
hunting.
I say deer's coming soon, so they're going to be having.
I know.
In the fall, they have their deer hunting contest.
That was pretty fun. Yeah, I saw that today driving by. So Adirondack Oktoberfest. The one thing
I say, don't give deer hunting shit.
No, I'm not.
Though I don't hunt, I love venison. It's a shame we don't, have them as farm animals. So you can go to the grocery store and just be like, I'll take a venison steak because it's delicious.
So one thing about this Adirondack Oktoberfest I want to point out is that they actually do call it the NYS Oktoberfest, and that's because it contains 100% New York State grown hops, which is not always the case because we don't grow that many hops in New York State. It's not really a thing that we
Doesn't Brown's have one of their beers? It's all based out of local New York ingredients.
Possibly, and I think Amagang is big on that too, trying to include as much locally grown Belgian stuff as possible.
I'm pretty sure one of Brown's beers is literally just all made from I think the barley, hops, water from the area. I think it's an organic something that they call it to kind of.
It's a big thing because like I said, we don't grow a lot of hops here. So
I wonder where in New York where they got them from.
I don't know. It's probably southern New York, I would say.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I would maybe southern New York, something like that. Because we around here,
it's corn.
We don't grow a lot of hops. We make the majority of the corn for your whiskey and stuff, but not the hops. So it's interesting. So that's going to give it a little bit of a distinctive flavor, and I think that this Adirondack Oktoberfest, for the most part, it's pretty reminiscent of some of your generic Oktoberfest,
I wouldn't. How dare you?
I'm not saying it's generic, but I'm saying that it's very close and similar to some of the other Oktoberfests
I know how.
that we've had.
Technically, in the use of the word generic, it fits what you're saying. But generic has such a negative connotation. So
I'm not saying that it's negative. I'm just saying
so
that
how dare
it
you?
definitely fits the bill for an Oktoberfest, especially ones around here like Saranac's and Sam Adams. I think it's a very clean and.
I think it's more in line with Saranac's and
Probably. Yeah, I think it doesn't have the overwhelming hoppy or not hot malty taste that Sam Adams does. That one is hits you front and center with the malts. And this one does have a malt content to it, but you've also got kind of a sweetness going on. It's almost sometimes a little bit caramely. And
crisp hop bite at the end.
Yeah, there is. I think it's really tasty. It was something, it is a little bit different than what we normally have. As well, none of them are always are totally the same. There's a little bit difference in recipes for each, but obviously this is going to be far from a more traditional German Oktoberfest. It's definitely a more Americanized version of an Oktoberfest with a heavier malt content than what a traditional German style of lighter lager would have.
Yeah, I agree. I like this a lot. I think this is a very good Oktoberfest.
One thing I'm not sold on is the labeling.
It's a weird papery.
Yeah, it's that. It seems like it's a really weird thing to be upset about, but the labeling itself,
and I'm more upset about the packaging
and the artwork and the packaging. I think they could use a little bit of work on it. I'm not a huge fan of Adirondack's kind of dated
this bottle
naturey.
This bottle does look like it was made in 1999.
Yeah, it's almost like somebody took an inkjet printer and just shot out a label and just stuck it on.
No, and it is true. And I love Adirondack's beers. The Bare Naked Ale, the Dirty Blonde Pale. I love their stuff. It's really good. My only problem with them is the packaging, because their bottles have a lot of heft to them compared.
I think they're thick bottles.
Yeah, no, they are. It's made of a heavier glass, but so because of that, the packaging just kind of feels like it's gonna fall apart when you pick it up, because the packaging's like a normal, just 6-pack, but the bottles are made with such heft. You hit somebody over the head with this bottle, it's gonna knock them. It's gonna knock them on their ass for a long fucking time. That's how heavy it is. And then I'm talking about like it's just an empty beer bottle.
And you never know when you're gonna need one like that. Just in case you're Terminator style of beer bottle.
You don't. Yeah, when I hear guitars, Cadillacs, and hillbilly music, ready to rumble. Doesn't matter if I'm upset or not. Time to break a beer bottle over someone's head.
I do like that in like 80s action movies where like everybody's just breaking bottles all the time. It's well, I don't have a weapon, but I've got a beer bottle.
Well, yeah, when you hear Dwight Yoakam, at least that's what I do.
That's right.
But no, I really do like this beer. It's got a very nice malt characteristic to it. As you said, it is caramely. It is bready. And at the end, it has a very nice... I can't discern the hops, and as we've said several times on the show, we're not very good at telling you what the hops are. Because I'll be, you can kind of...
I'm not going to get specific. They're New York State hops.
Yeah.
I don't
and that's all it says in the bottle.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like they're giving you a hint, but at the end you do get like a nice crisp hop taste at the end to kind of balance out the malty, bready characteristic at the beginning and give you that crisp, clean hop finish.
Yeah, I will say that the beer is pretty heavy though, and like I would say because of that breadiness to it. I'm getting full.
Yeah, no, it feels like you're eating like a nice loaf of rye bread.
You're eating a loaf of bread when you're consuming these. So, that's the only thing. So, like, it comes in I don't think it comes in a 12-pack. I think they only make 6-packs for the most part, unless it's like a variety pack and they make a 12.
I mean,
but other than that, I think it comes in a 6-pack. That's more than enough for a session because you're gonna get probably a couple sessions out of that. You're not going to be drinking all 6 of them at one time, I don't think. That's a lot of bread.
Hey, it's nice.
Unless you want to be pooping out a loaf later on.
Nice fall day around the bonfire, you might as well, What else are you going to do?
Yeah, maybe if you got a long day. For sure. That'd be nice. I like days like that. Not the 90-degree weather that we've been having lately. I dislike that.
Winter is coming.
I was we went to a craft fair and we went to an apple orchard too to pick apples. Sweating.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Nice upstate New York hobby. Going to a fucking apple orchard.
Apple picking.
Yeah.
It's great. No, but I do not like sweating while picking my apples. That's
well, you shouldn't be. You should be wrapped in flannel.
I know. That's what I wanted to do. I wore a baseball tee, thinking like, it might be a little cool out today, and it was fucking hot.
I know. Well, I wore this long sleeve today, and I thinking like, and I was actually the other day I was going to wear this shirt, and I took one step outside, walked back inside, took it off, it's a lot hotter than I fucking thought it was gonna be. Yeah,
not ideal Octoberfest drinking weather, but I'm forcing myself to do it anyway. So
I'm not going to let the weather ruin the best beer of the season.
That's right. Me either. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead. Stay with us.
Hey there, neighbor. It's me, Head Librarian Gavin. I co-head librarian the Red Light Library, that erotic-only library off 2nd Street. Yeah, you know the one. Hey, did you know we're running a podcast now? That's right. And the thing is, we're reviewing the worst erotica we can find online for money, and I've been reading about a lot of weird things banging lately. Like, I could just sit here and tell you about the snowman, the leprechaun, the psychic Utah Raptors that start an orgy, the questionable lesbian with the applesauce scene that's really disgusting, and the Donald Trump. Or you could just listen yourself. Use your favorite podcatching app or look us up on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play. We're all over the place. The Red Light Library. Search it, you'll get us. Now for why I'm really here. Can I borrow your chainsaw again? We've tracked down an overdue book in someone's car and we need to retrieve it with, shall we say, extreme measures.
Alright guys, we're back and we're talking about Night of the Living Dead, the 1990 remake from Tom Savini. As we talked about earlier in the show, written by George Romero. I didn't realize that at first, but upon watching it, you can clearly see how much Romero has actually poured it over from his old script. Some lines are actually like straight taken from that other script, and I think that becomes part of the reason why Savini's remake is basically shot for shot and pretty much throughout most of, I would say, the first 2 acts is very similar to the original film in almost every way.
I would say almost the entire film's the same.
I think really
outside of swapping some roles.
Yep, swapping roles in the conclusion obviously is much different.
It's still the same though. It's literally the same outcome, but instead of one character, it's another.
Yeah, and it goes a little bit more in depth into like human action within this zombie apocalypse. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't want to get into that first off, right off the bat there. But other than that, it's very, very similar. Some of this, like, there's this. It's not even like they swapped when we say swapped roles. It's not even like they changed up the characters themselves. Like, Ben's still a black character. This time played by Tony Todd. So they didn't even swap out maybe some of the races and how that was interaction between like characters, because it's still the same type of thing wherein you have Harry, who's the guy down in the basement who they find
Cooper.
Yeah,
Cooper.
They find him in the basement when they first get to the farmhouse. That's still the same.
The dynamics are still the same with, like, especially with Ben and Cooper's relationship. It's mainly out of the characters. The big change is Barb.
Barb is the one.
The old famous Barbara.
Yeah, I mean, in the original film with Romero, especially with his writing, she did not have a lot to do. And that's partially because of the writing and partially because of the direction of they did not really want the female character to have a lot of, action in the film. They wanted Ben to be more of the main hero.
But it makes sense, though. Makes sense for if you watch the original film. When she probably 18.
I would say older than that, but
even early 20s.
Early 20s, I guess. I would say.
Just the way she looks and kind of acts, just because especially when her brother's making fun, and it's very
she's obviously high anxiety.
Yeah, and high strung. So her reaction to becoming catatonic and useless essentially throughout the entire film, it's not insulting. It makes sense. But if she's gonna flip out at her brother, stop teasing me, when Johnny's just gonna, they're coming to get you, Barbara. Makes sense. If she's gonna flip shit over, that, and then watching her brother get his head caved in on a tombstone and her world falling apart before her, she's probably not gonna be like, all right, let's gun up and take, on the zombie apocalypse. She's probably gonna be sitting there and be like, I don't know what to fucking do.
Yeah, but I still say that in Romero's Night of the Living Dead, in the original, I feel like they still treat Barbara as sort of like the Western barmaid who's fainting at every turn, just like, oh, I've got the vapors, and she just
because then the one guy, I can't remember his name in
Tom.
Is it Tom though in the original?
I think so.
I don't know if it is or not. I felt like his name in the remake, because it's Tom in the remake, and Judy Rose. I don't think that was their original names.
Judy Rose, I definitely think is not the original name, but I'd have to look it up because I don't remember specifically them, because I remember it in Romero's Night of the Living Dead. I don't care that much about them.
Well, no,
they're more so
I literally
fodder.
Tom in this film I refer to in the original as Golly Gee Willikers, because he's literally the stereotypical 1950s sitcom Leave It to Beaver, oh golly gee Willikers, let's all work together,
like an Andy Griffith sort of thing.
I'm taking a look.
Yeah, I mean, I think for them though.
Okay, yeah, no, it is Tom and Judy.
Oh, so they added the more
Judy Rose to make it more like you're in rural country, because women folk here get referred to 2 first names. But no, I mean Judy, because Judy in the first film, granted she doesn't have a lot to do or anything, but she's not stereotyped to be a helpless woman. She's actually trying to do things and helping Tom, her boyfriend, I mean, like I said, she doesn't have a very big role, but she's not like she's like fitting any like stereotype that's like, oh, see how useless women are? They can't do anything for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, here she definitely has that sort of...
Which, in this one, in the remake, she does. She literally takes on Barbara's persona from the first film, and because in this one, she's fucking hysterical the entire time, and for like no reason. She's just literally constantly yelling and screaming, like, we gotta do something! It's crazy! This is madness! Sitting there hammering on nails into wood, and it's just...
Yeah, I know.
And with a meat tenderizer.
Yeah, she definitely has a different character than she does in Romero's film, and it's like they didn't swap characters.
They create a new role for Barbara, and then gave, because like I said, it's not like she had a memorable part really in the first film,
right?
It's just that like but she didn't fit like a stereotype.
Yeah, I think well, I don't think that I don't like what Romero did with I guess what her Judy Rose in this one. I don't like how he made her into
Hysterical?
a hysterical like stock character who really, she actually doesn't have like much of a role at all, except for later on when the infamous gas station explosion occurs, and this actually seems more nonsensical in this 1990 version.
Yeah,
than
no,
it
it
was
does. It seems even more. It's literally like these fucking dumb kids,
right?
Shooting a shotgun at a gas pump to break the lock off. While not inherently a bad idea, because it's not like the gas pumps are gonna go boom.
And under pressure,
But they had a flaming torch nearby, so if you do shoot a gas pump with a shotgun, it will leak gas and spray gas. So if you have a torch nearby, like literally, if you're gonna be like, oh shit, the keys don't open the lock on the pump, I would have taken that torch, thrown like a mile away, and like make sure nothing flammable.
In general, filling a truck with gas with a flaming thing around is not a good idea. So, even if they didn't shot the pump,
it's like Zoolander. Like, we just had an innocent gasoline fight, and then he went to light a cigarette.
Exactly. Even if they hadn't shot the pump with the gun, and it didn't cause a spray, still trying to fill the truck with gas with a flaming open torch nearby. Not a good idea anyway, because you're still just asking for like a stray spark or something to like.
You could literally have. I think like things like this is what's spurred on Animaniacs. Good idea, bad idea. It's like good idea.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like trucks out of gas to fill up. Bad idea. Having a flaming torch while filling up.
And you're right. I'm even open to the fact that he used the gun on the gas tank to shoot the lock off because he's under pressure. While the zombies don't move quickly, they still are coming, and you've only got a limited amount of time. You don't want to waste the gas that's already in the truck either, because right now
it's on fumes.
Yeah, it's barely running at all. So you've got to think quickly, and there's nothing else to do. It's not like he had a bunch of like tools laying around where he could be like fiddling with it. It's all or nothing. But at the same time, yeah, but what I was talking about too with Judy Rose is that when she drives the truck up and Ben falls off the side of the truck and Tom's yelling at her like, stop the truck, Ben fell off the truck, and she doesn't hear a thing. It's just like, what's going on with this girl? She like totally zoned out.
It would have made sense too if Tom was knocking on the window, like the back window, like, hey, hey,
right, yeah.
So just like yell, like, I didn't hear you. It's like,
first of all, I don't buy that she didn't hear him while he was in the bed of the truck. That's
just more her being hysterical, like,
because they even show her when she's driving off and she's kind of
laughing.
She's out of it.
Like,
Maybe it's the first time she's ever driven a truck. Who knows?
Oh no, they clearly state she's been driving trucks since she was 4 years old. So that's how she knows. She
knows how to drive it.
But
yeah, no, but I don't really like Judy Rose's character in this at all, and I wish that they had not gone that route and just if they were gonna make Barbara a strong character, they might as well have just made at least Judy Rose competent and able to do things, because right now, like, her role is very limited, and it's almost more ridiculous to have her be totally hysterical while they're trying to fill the gas tank.
Well, at the same time, they're filling two, at this point in horror cinema, two character archetypes, like a screaming woman.
Mm-hmm.
Got to have a screaming woman throughout,
True.
And the hero woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the final girl.
The final girl heroine, which I think doesn't work to this film's benefit at all now that Barbara's been put up on the pedestal.
Why do you say that it doesn't work?
Because it's not original to be like, okay, again, she goes from, like, again, because in the beginning it's the same thing. She's being teased by her brother Johnny, and she's acting fucking overly dramatic about it for no reason. Like, anything that a normal person would be like, Johnny, like, shut the fuck up.
Right.
You're being an idiot.
Yeah.
But she's like, stop it. No.
Yeah.
And then by, like, midway through the film, she's fucking Annie Oakley with a, Winchester 30-30, like, picking zombies off from a mile away. It's like, oh.
Well, this is almost like Romero picking up from Dawn of the Dead, because that occurs in Dawn of the Dead too.
But it makes sense in Dawn of the Dead because
that's all she has to do. Yeah.
Well, no, and months upon months have passed throughout the film, so it makes sense for Fran to learn how to fly, to shoot, and do all those things, because literally a huge, you don't know the exact time gap between the entire film, but it's literally months have taken place, so it makes sense for her to be able to do these things.
Right. I mean,
and this, it's literally like, well,
yeah, it's been like 6 hours.
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, but I think that this is like Romero learning a little bit from some of his other films and kind of cribbing from them too, because it actually like almost preludes to some of the other ones, because like we see towards the end of the film, there's like a zombie human fight, like a wrestling match that's like almost like a betting match, and that's almost like a prelude to Land of the Dead, which would.
But at the same time, like as it is, you're right, it is, because that's something you do see in Land. What you see in Dawn and Day do foreshadow like something like that.
That's true, because also in Day, you have that sort of
they're dealing with
there's like a almost like a scientific breakthrough for them, is like, well, what can we do with these zombies now?
We can't cure it, so let's train,
exactly. Like when you have menial labor, you're always going to have that push to like figure out, well, how can we have something else do it? And in that case, it's like it's zombies. How can we have something that's already pretty much a slave to itself, has to feed like constantly, or is driven by hunger? How can we have that do some jobs for us? That'd be great, right? Maybe we can turn this zombie apocalypse around. But yeah, in this one, it's more so like for sport. And I think like we see that more as Romero gets more into the whole politics of zombies and his more elaborate metaphors. And it starts to become more of a comment on humanity as a whole.
I mean, that whole end bit we've also already seen in Dawn, except kind of blown up a little bit more, of like the whole rednecks having their fun tracking down, shooting the zombies and hunting them, and yeah. In this, it's literally like, let's just do that, and then we'll add a pig roast.
It's kind of interesting to see this too, because we have to kind of treat this remake as though, because it's a prequel to Dawn, even though it's a remake in the 1990s. It was made after Dawn and Day, and yet it was before
Land,
and yeah, it's supposed to take place before those. We have to treat it kind of like a prelude to those. So do you think this is Romero kind of, jumping back a little bit and saying like, well, things kind of spiraled from Night of the Living Dead when I first made it. So let's kind of try to take things back to make them lead into Dawn a little bit better than Night of the Living Dead does. Because there's not, like, when we think of Night of the Living Dead from the 1960s and then Dawn of the Dead way later,
Little connection.
yeah, there's not that much connection in between the two, and some things really just don't match up.
But at the same time, I think that's consistent throughout all the films. Like, again,
Yeah.
and this one of the things they use is the fear of fire from zombies, which is prevalent in the original.
That's true.
It's something that never sticks throughout.
Yeah, that's not really. Yeah, that is surprising, because if Romero was doing that and he was kind of trying to retcon some stuff and say, like, well, you know, if I was going to make this now and trying to tie it to dawn and day, I wouldn't use the flame, right?
But I mean, but at the same time, you can make it make sense in the sense, like, at the beginning, because it's the beginning of the outbreak.
maybe
like,
they were fearful of
They
flame?
were fearful. But then, as we see in Land, how they used fireworks to distract them, by the end of the film doesn't work anymore.
Right.
Because you have the one, as I call, Sergeant Black Dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
lead zombie of Land, who is, learns to fire the gun and, is leading this giant cohort of zombies. In the beginning, the fireworks, they get tricked by. But by the end, it's, he convinces them it doesn't work on them. That, it's not needed. So, I mean, yeah, I can understand, like, maybe throughout time, like, the zombies learn that, like, hey, we don't have to be afraid of fire. But at the same time, there's nothing connecting the films that suggests, like, you see that. At least in Land, you do see that, them learn from that. So, and especially seeing it as Dawn is literally taking place at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse.
Right.
And then several months pass, it's not like
Yeah.
you could argue Dawn is literally starting at the same point as Night.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, though.
the continuity of these films is so fucking scattershot.
Yeah.
It's for me at least, and I am a continuity whore. I like things to have continuity and fluidity and make sense. But I mean, with something like this, I've accepted that, like, it's kind of like, you take it for what it is, and like holes in that kind of stuff, like you have to accept. Otherwise, you'll be sitting around fucking forever,
Yeah, I mean, I do find it interesting, though, that this is sort of part of that, of Romero's idea of evolution for zombies. We do kind of see that. You can read it like that. It's part of him, I think, leading up to the next era of his filmmaking. And while I don't really enjoy much of that new era of Romero filmmaking, like Land, and I think Land's okay, I would say.
You even haven't seen Diary yet.
Right, and I haven't seen Diary.
That's what we're going to have to do that for the podcast.
I hated Survival. But I would say, like, it's kind of interesting to see the evolution for him of figuring out, like, where can I go next with these zombies? Like, what can I do with them? We've already done some of the classic tropes of what I helped create with zombies. What can we do next? We kind of see that with Night of the Living Dead, since it comes later, for 1990, and I think also because of Tom Savini being a huge part of this film, we also have a much more explicit use of, like, violence and gore effects.
Well, if you're gonna remake this film,
you might as well.
this is literally why you're remaking this film.
I think
Otherwise, there's no point in remaking this film, because if there's anything that if there's anything you can hold against the original, it is not aged well, in the sense of being scary, frightening, and with its effects.
I think
and I'm not holding that. I will never hold that against the film, because when I watch films and TV and anime, whatever, I kind of base it on more of the merits of the time.
right.
I'm not gonna hold the original 1973 Lupin III for having what would be considered now not great animation, because it's made in 1970.
It just doesn't make sense.
So you can't hold it to
Right.
In that sense, like a story wise sense and like characters, you can hold it to like a modern standard, but like seeing things in production, you can't. You can't, like, films that were made in the 20s, you can't be mad that they're silent.
Right.
You may not like it, but you literally can't be like, well, it's a shit film, because it's like, well, then don't bother watching.
Yeah.
So, with Night of the Living Dead, the original, as much as I love it and think it's great, in a sense, I can totally see why. And and I said before, I'm not really the biggest fan of remakes, because I think you should really kind of enjoy films and things for what they are during the time. But if there's a film that's like, I would say that's not going to offend me as much for a remake, Night of the Living Dead's one of them. Because the limitations of the time period, and not only that, the budget that Romero had for that film, really make it, if you're like 40 years old and you're going to show this like your child, like, hey, this is one of my favorite films, as a kid, they watch it, they're going to be like, what the fuck's so amazing?
Right, what was so scary? What?
Or like, what? And then you're going to have to lecture them on, like, the point, and then what? You lost them.
Yeah.
Because what 14-year-old's going to sit there and like, thanks, Dad, thanks, Mom, you've opened,
Yeah, right.
So I can see this film totally benefiting from a modernization.
I think that, like, the modernization here helps the film, because in the original, sometimes it's difficult to figure out, like, well, are they actually a zombie? Because there's not a lot of makeup effects or, like, special effects to actually cue you in and, like, they're actually dead.
If they're slightly paler.
Right.
Which is harder to tell because it's in black and white too.
And sometimes shambling.
Which even for 1968,
right.
A black and white film is really a sign of, like, you couldn't afford Technicolor.
Exactly. And I think, that helps here, because right from the beginning, even though the zombie that happens in the cemetery with Barb and Johnny, even though you can see it shambling and you can see it from a distance, there's still from the distance you can't really see, is it like a actual zombie or is it a person, or what's going on with that. So you have the variety of, like, did they recently die? So they might not be as decayed.
And you get the false red herring in intro too. You see the old man shambling by, but he's not a zombie. He's been, like, injured in the head.
Right.
And he doesn't know what's going on.
It works well.
And then they jump scared to an actual zombie.
You get a better feeling of what's happening, and okay, this thing is a zombie because it's decaying. That makes sense to me.
And it's in color.
and it's in color as well. I think Tom Savini's effects are really good here.
Especially
for more of the decaying zombie effects.
I would say it's not as good as Day, but I think that has more to do with budget too.
Could be.
Day did have probably a better budget for its time than this. Because Day has really good effects, like really good effects.
Yeah, they do. I think that though in this film, because it's working off of Romero's original ideas,
they stick closer
to the ideas. So it's not. It's the ultra violent nature of the film is really toned down compared to something like Dawn or Day, in that they get more gruesome from Night, and so they wanted to kind of go back to basics. And there's not a lot
which again I'm fine with, and I do think that the effects. I don't know if because he's directing the film. I don't know if he was leading the effects in this too, or if he just hired somebody that he knew would do a good job. I don't know how much input he had, like, when he was doing the effects.
Yeah, I would say that he probably,
I would imagine, because that's his, his main trade is...
Yeah, he's not listed as part of the effects team, but I would assume that he probably had a lot of say on, like, what they should, I don't think that looks good,
or
so,
or what they should do. But anyhow, whatever his influence may have been on the effects for this, I do think they're very good. I do think part of this film's appeal and charm is the effects for it.
Just updating them.
Because again, like I said, if you're going to do a remake of this film, the whole purpose of it has to be to make it look more ingrained and believable than the original ever could have.
I think
they were using chocolate syrup in the fucking original to, like, as blood effects.
Right.
You can't do that in color, and again, this is made in 1990, so it's even better because we're not going to have CGI. It has to be practical too.
Right, we're like 20 years later, so it makes sense to want to update it a little bit to give it more of a modern feel and to obviously relate to the times where things were a little bit more violent than they were at that time. So it works. I think it works. The only thing that I think that the effects with Tom Savini's film detract from is because we see some of the more violent aspects of the film so early. The scene that really sticks out to me in Night of the Living Dead in the original is when they go upstairs and see the grisly aftermath of a body that's on the top floor, the second floor of the farmhouse.
You never really get to see. It's just like legs and some.
You just kind of get the idea
of what happened,
and you do. I think you see a face too. You see like the face really quick of just like, oh, that looks bad. So that is like kind of a shock in Night of the Living Dead because it does have that violent nature to it that you don't get as much in the beginning of the film. Here, there is the same thing occurs, although I think the effect is kind of broken because we've already seen stuff like that before. So it's not as jarring as that other one. But other than that, I think the use of more violent effects of gore, it really works here. And even so, when we talk about gore,
it's tame.
It's tame in comparison, again, to Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead. There's not a lot of like flesh eating per se.
It's only that like one part, which is one of the main parts from near the end of night, where you see them feasting on like bones and stuff.
Right.
That's like, which by the way, kind of get off track. Talk about like score for a second. The whole score for this film, I feel like, is literally based off that one scene in Night. Because the one kind of synthy part score to the original Night,
mm-hmm.
which is kind of revolutionary. Because 1968, a lot of people aren't using synthesizers then.
Mm-hmm.
Is like the part when they're eating. You see the zombies eating the flesh and the meat, and you have that just like boom, boom, boom. Throughout that like little 2-minute scene. And it feels like because the rest of that film is literally like just canned stock, 1950s-esque like sci-fi, orchestral scores and stings. Where in this film, the score really feels like they took that. As like a fan of noise, like literally just took that like part of the score from the original film and focused on that and made that kind of synth sting and just made it resonate throughout the entire film. And I actually love that because that's like actually one of my favorite parts in the original Night of the Living Dead is when you see them like the zombies shambling and you hear that score and then like it focuses on like some of the zombies and they're eating like the flesh after the traumatic gas station explosion and death of Tom and Judy because of stupidity and shit like that, and you get to see that. It's really cool, and I think it works in this film, like taking one of the strengths of the original and then like putting it in this film and then changing it and stretching it enough to make it into something unique and enjoyable and new.
Yeah, I think they do that quite a bit, and they take some of the old stock music that was used in Night of the Living Dead, and I think they try to update it a little bit. They give it more of a synth tone to it that they allow to, like I said, update the score, but still keeping it
within the roots,
within the realm of the original Night of the Living Dead. I think that's another important thing that we haven't talked about yet, is that because this film does have George Romero at the script helm, and obviously Tom Savini has worked closely with Romero previously, this does not feel like a remake just to do it, just for money purposes, just to make money off of the title alone. It does feel like a work that is intentionally made to better the product. And I think that's important because otherwise it could feel like a cash grab. It could, and I don't think it does. While it's a shot-for-shot remake, while the script pretty much shares a lot of the same themes and ideas that the original had, it does feel like this is a work of love. And that makes it more enjoyable than I think even it could be if it didn't have Romero at the helm, or if it had, someone else besides Tom Savini directing. I don't think that this film is as successful as the original Night of the Living Dead. I think that it does have some moments where it could use a bit better pacing. Because if we're talking about updating, this film does use a lot of the same pacing as the original Night of the Living Dead, and that's, I find, sometimes not. It's kind of a negative aspect, because Night of the Living Dead does have a lot of slower moments to it, right? I mean, it has a lot of conversations and dialogue that slow the pacing down, and a lot of moments where the characters are just kind of like boarded up in rooms, or trying to put doors up on windows so that the zombies can't break through. They're kind of slower moments. And Night of the Living Dead, the 1990 version, copies those. I think they could have gone a little bit further than that and added some action to these scenes rather than copying the original.
It's literally like they just took the original and kind of like, we can spice it up and make it more edgy by adding fuck and like bullshit, because it's literally, they're taking those like same expositional scenes from the original and then just kind of extremifying it, to kind of like,
yeah. I mean,
which I think totally loses, because again, in the original, one of the great things about it is the dynamic between Cooper and Ben, and the relationship that they have, and the angst and anger that they had, and the power struggle that they have between each other, because Ben is black, a little Freudian slip there, and Cooper's, an older white man. Again, 1968, a lot of racial tension going on. So, you get, it's a great...
The theme is there.
The theme and motif is of race relations, and control is there and prevalent throughout the entire film. And this is there, but at the same time, it has no meaning or resonant, because it's literally taken from the original, and then they just add like fucking bullshit to it, and so it's nowhere near impactful. So like, you're not getting the context from the original. And not only that, I don't think the dynamic between Tony Todd and
Tom Towles
is nowhere near as like good as in the original.
I think,
I think I don't think Tony Todd is bad as Ben, but I think some of the extra lines and stuff they give him to say in this make him a lot more unlikable, and almost as much of a bastard as Harry Cooper. Not as much, because Cooper is literally the biggest bastard of them all still. But even still, like, some of the things that they like have him, Tony Todd as Ben, do and say make him like, wow, he's kind of a prick too. Well, whereas in the original, his stance is reasonable, cool-headed, and Cooper's being,
I think
paranoid and angry and compulsive. So when Ben, combats him, it makes more sense, and when he gets upset, it makes more sense. Whereas in this, it's literally like, you're both being assholes. Cooper, you're being a bigger asshole. Ben, at the same time, you're being an asshole too. Which I think part of the problem is, so that whole focal point is, it's literally the focal point of the original film. Because that's the whole idea is, the zombies aren't the enemy, it's mankind's the enemy, it's its own worst enemy. The zombies aren't going to get mankind, it's mankind, because they can't get along and solve their differences, and etc., etc. And the race relation between the two, and the dynamic between the two, is the part, the main cog in that metaphor, that theme. Here, in this film, what they do is they take part of Ben's calm-headed, cool-headed leadership, and they give it to Barbara to make her your typical final female. So in this film, Ben's losing part of his character to fulfill another character who by the end it's like, who gives a shit? And I think that's the biggest flaw in this film, is the way they kind of swap roles. And I think it might be because people probably over the years bitch about Barbara being useless in the original. Like, oh, she's useless. Though it makes sense for her to be useless. They make her a stronger character in this film, but it's not enough to make anything, her character change worthwhile. And at the same time, it's hampering Ben's character and how he's portrayed in this film.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and part of it too is that,
and I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's because Tony Todd's not a bad actor.
No, I think he does a pretty good job. I think you're right when that they kind of make him seem a little bit more unable to comply with some things. That he does seem like he's being too pushy on Harry. Harry's obviously not
and not thinking right.
Right, he's not a great person, but at the same time, Tony Todd is very unrelenting, and he just will not see the opposite side that he wants to. And even when he sees that Sarah is in the basement, she's been bitten, he's not really sympathetic to their cause, and even kind of eyes the door that she's lying on, like we could use that to board up the windows. Those kinds of things, they kind of hamper Ben's character, because the original really wants to see Ben as the good guy who. He
is the good guy. He is the hero.
He's the hero, and he an unfortunate,
a very tragic hero too,
and one
which
that's
again
almost predicated by race itself.
And I say, not only that, like one of the best parts of the original film is totally lost on this film. Like, one of the great things about the original film is not only that in 1968 it has a lead black male as the hero. Some people are like, oh, what difference does his color of his skin make? Again, if you think about the time period the film is made, it's a big deal. Unless you're Sidney Poitier, who was also at the same time, kind of breaking down that barrier. It's not a big deal. But at the same time, for him to die at the end, unheroically, tragically, just because he was thought to be a zombie from like a mile away, gets shot in the head, and he's thrown in the burning pile. What a fucking terrible downbeat ending that is. But it's great. I don't always want to leave this cinema like happy and like that. It's fucking great. The film just ends. Ben shot in the head. Here's some still shots of the posse rounding up zombies, and then you get to see his body get thrown on like a burning pyre of bodies. It's fucking great. It's tragic. He's the hero. He's the one survivor at the end, and he's fucked. It's great. That's why Dawn should have ended like on a tragic note like that too. Would have been great. It's like, can't win. You're fucked. Everybody's fucked.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is a really strong moment in Night, and they go for a different conclusion in this 1990 version.
They go for your Land of the Dead style.
Yeah, they
Ron Perlman War.
I mean,
War never changes.
You still get the downbeat ending that is basically human versus human standoff, in that Harry shoots Ben and Ben shoots Harry, and it's like because they couldn't come together, they are the downfall of each other. At the same time, though, that ending with Ben is somewhat anticlimactic, and it's because they needed to split it with Barbara, who is also made it out alive.
Yeah.
Becomes the heroine.
And she doesn't suffer the repercussions of Ben's ending from the original, because they got it. At least in this one, they're probably thinking, well, we gotta have a survivor. You can't end it with everyone fucking dead again.
I think with Romero here, he wanted to go for somewhat of a different storyline for the end. And so when he allows Barbara to kind of sneak into this backwoods posse and shows that she's changed. She's different now that she's experienced this apocalypse. She's not the same Barbara that was. She's
not frightened and timid. She's a fucking crack shot.
Yeah, she's totally different now. I think that's him really being ham-fisted with the themes of the film, because as we played in our opening, and I added the echo for effect, he's very explicit with the ideas of what he wants Night of the Living Dead to come across for its theme. And I think that's a mistake, for one thing, because there's enough here anyway without her saying the phrase, it's we are them and they are us.
Yeah, but they do have lines like that. Not as ham-fisted, but they do in Dawn and Day, they do have lines like that.
Yeah, I know they do.
That
yeah.
allude to that. But no, you're right. Especially at the end.
What-
Yeah, maybe if it was like tacked on like somewhere in the middle, like when they're seeing them, like coming closer to the house or something. Like kind of like in Dawn, like when like, why are they coming like gathering around the small? It doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, it's because they're us.
Right,
you know,
right, yeah.
Think they maybe have memories or whatever. You know, that's more. I mean, that's still ham-fisted, but it's also done, you know, part way through the film. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like it's there. It's an idea, little nugget in your brain.
I would say
Here it's literally at the end, so it's literally like, you know, again, it's like having Ron Perlman at the beginning and end of a Fallout game, like, war never changes. So it's literally here, mankind, they'll never learn. You'll fuck each other over and over again.
Well, I think the bigger problem, too, is not just that she says that line, but that the film ends on a constant shuffling of pictures that return back to
the original, and it's nowhere near the effect.
It's not as effective. It keeps returning to Barbara's face. You know,
Like
her
her
very
bliss.
serious stare to show like look how much she's different now. Like look how changed she is and how jaded she is to humanity now. And I don't think it works because it's so overstated at that point. You know, we don't need 7 shots of Barbara's very, very serious stare.
It's like, no shit, you know, she's changed. Obviously, shit's not going back to normal.
I would have rather had just not even like they're
I
us and they're them, but just her taking that last shot at Harry. When Harry turns around, it comes around the corner. He's not a zombie. He's not changed.
He survived.
He survived.
But she shoots him anyway because he's a bastard.
It's exactly. I would have rather just had that and leave it at that because then that's a very
have a still shot. The still shot. If you're gonna do the still shots, and have the still shots being of his body instead of Ben's body.
Exactly, because it's the same concept that someone survived and they got fucked over in the end. Except this time it was by our main character who's supposed to be a hero and actually
technically she's a murderer. As much as big of a bastard and an asshole Harry is, he didn't do anything like, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, like you said, like, look, I would have, if I was her too, I probably would have shot him in the head too.
He's a woman beater.
He's a white, especially in this one. Like in the original, he just verbally abuses his wife. In this one, he flat out, you know.
But again, Barbara doesn't see that either. I mean, she doesn't really see the
I know, but
abuse.
But at least we're privy to that info, so you can sleep soundly.
You can feel okay with it. Like,
she may have not known that he was a wife beater, but you know
we do.
We do. So yeah. But no, like, so no, that I actually like that idea. That'd be like a great little turn on its head if you're gonna do the whole thing. You know, have it be him being like carried off at the end till still shots into the burning pyre. Because, you know, he's the one in the original that deserved to be thrown in the fire. At the end of the original, we should have seen Ben walking out of the house with the posse, like, hey, we survived. But he didn't get that.
Yeah.
And you are right. His ending into this is so like anticlimactic, like just like, yo, he's a zombie because he's been shot twice. So the next day he's dead. And when they break into the basement, you see him at the stairs, and he gets shot. You know.
Yeah, it's not really that meaningful.
The only part about I told you, the only part I liked about that is that when he's sitting down there, he's listening to the radio, and he's kind of accepting he's going to die. You know, maybe, hopefully, he'll be able to survive, but he's probably not from his wounds. That they find the gas key down there. I like that part.
Because it's downbeat again. You know, it's
because again, if they just worked together and fucking looked for the key like original, they could have filled up the truck, gotten out of there, and had a better chance at survival and meeting up with like this posse of survivors or anything.
Yep.
But they didn't. So I do like that, and I do think, you know, that is a nice touch, and his reaction of him laughing like, this is fucking great, you know. I do like that, and I think, though I don't think it's needed, especially in the original film, I don't think it's needed because the subtext is already firmly there. I think it's a nice touch to this film, at least.
So how would you compare it to the original? Like, do you find this one as good as the original? Do you prefer the original to this one? I know that a lot of people, you know, like we talked about before, Bloody Disgusting has given this film a 4.5 out of 5.
Well, from what I was reading online when it came out, terrible reviews.
Yeah, because when you said the 4.5 out of 5, I was kind of surprised because from my recollections, I thought that people were really not that enthused with
It's
this.
got a better viewing, a better reception as years have gone on. It's aged better. And from what I will say, I guess we'll go into a rating now.
Sure, yeah.
So I guess I'll do it this week. Out of 10 Pittsburgh Steeler hats.
Nice.
Or out of 10 Pittsburgh Steeler and Stony beer cans. This film was brought to you by Stoney's.
That's right.
Unfortunately, we don't get that around here. We had to, which, before we even get into rating, they had a Jenny Cream Ale can on like one of the shelves that you were pointing out, and I had to like have you rewind and
Caught
pause.
it real quick. Yep.
That's great. I love that. But I'll give it a 7. Because at least for this podcast, I don't like giving halves. I think I have, but I try not to. I would lean more towards a 6.5, but I'll give it a 7. I do think in certain aspects this film does a good job. I think the effects for this film are very good. I think it is a effective modernization of this film. I do think it's unnecessary to be shot for shot because, I mean, at least with music, when it comes to like a band like covering a song, if a band covers a song and it's almost like note for note, basically kind of the same thing, at least I'm fine with that because it's always going to be appealing to the ears. It doesn't work like that for film, though. You have to kind of do something different and do even better at it, which puts, I think, remakes at a significant disadvantage. I think in certain aspects, this film does better than the original. Like I said, the effects, because of the time period. I think, and how it kind of looks in the shot overall, I think it looks better than the original just because of what film at the time period was able to allow. However, I don't think the changing of character personalities in certain aspects works. I think it totally hampers the film. I think it with that also hampers the themes of the original film, which is one of the main points of the creation of the original film, thus making this film kind of moot. Mm-hmm. However, though I think the acting overall across the board, outside of fucking Judy Rose and Helen Cooper, I think Tony Todd and Patricia Tallman and Tony Todd, I think can do a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is actually one of the weird remakes. Usually remakes are very one or the other. They're either, wow, what a great job. Rarely it's in that category, but it's usually like, wow, what a great job, it was a good idea to do that. Most times it's in the, why the fuck was this ever done? Mm-hmm. This is in the middle, like, you can live with it and you can live without it. I can see the merits of Night of the Living Dead, though I don't like the idea of remakes that much. I can see it where, as a film, it would benefit more than some other films that have been remade over the years. And I think this film does enough different to be its own film, but at the same time, there's nothing really to this film to make you ever want to go out and search for it. And that's probably why it's never made its way onto TV. Because why air this film when you can just air the original?
Yeah, I mean, in the public domain, it's much easier to.
And not only that, but like you can literally, after showing enough times the original Night of the Living Dead, people are either going to finally accept it for what it is, especially in this time period, this year, or they're like, it's not for me. And I don't think this film is not going to sway you one way or the other.
Yeah, I think because it doesn't update the slower pace of the original, you're still going to have those people who are like, well, it was boring. You know what I mean? Even with the gore effects, even with some more violence, you're still going to have that feeling of like, well, it wasn't scary. It was kind of boring. The zombies were slow.
It's plotting.
Yeah.
Especially now, after like 28 Days Later, the remake of Dawn of the Dead, where you get, faster zombies and that whole idea, which I don't like at all, but I mean...
Right. Yeah, I mean, I still think even in 1990, before that was a thing, before we had a lot of faster zombies, I still think people who were not open to the original Night of the Living Dead because they felt it was too slow or that it wasn't really
This isn't gonna do anything.
violent enough. Yeah, you're still gonna have that feeling because it just kind of increases some of the gore effects and actually changes some of the thematic effectiveness of the film. So yeah, I don't think that this is going to sway a lot of people. You're going to watch it and you're either going to like it because it's similar to the original Night of the Living Dead, or you're going to watch it and you're still not going to like it because it is similar to the Night of the Living Dead.
But I think if you like and love the original Night of the Living Dead, watch this.
Yeah,
I think it has enough new things there that you'll appreciate. I think
you'll like the homage to the
and not
original.
and not only that. There's one thing you cannot hold against this film is this is a lot of remakes are done with no love and no care to the original. This is obviously made with love and care to the original. Obviously, if George Romero decided to rewrite the script and have Tom Savini brought on board to direct it, which I don't know if that was his first film directing or not.
I'm not sure,
but it may very well have been. So I mean, like. Care, at least love and tender care was kind of given to the film.
He actually did a couple Tales from the Dark Side episodes.
Well, this is his first feature film.
Feature film, yes.
So I mean, it was at least made with tender love and care.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said that before. It definitely does feel like an act of love, and they wanted to kind of return to it and do things their way, what they could with a better budget and with better effects and just more modernization. So I think if you did like Night of the Living Dead, you could definitely check out this film and you'll probably still like this one. And this isn't going to be a film where you watch it and you're like really turned off by it because it didn't hit the same notes as the original. It's right there with it.
It's beat for beat.
It changes a couple things, and you may come away saying, I really didn't like that conclusion. That may be one thing that you get from this film where you really have a dislike for it. But other than that, I don't think that anybody's really going to be hurt by watching this. So I think you should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. I didn't give my rating yet, but I would say probably about a 7 out of 10 as well. I don't think it is as effective as Night of the Living Dead, the original, even though it does up the ante for gore and special effects and things like that. I think some of the scenes, like the scene with Sarah in this film, are not as effective. As you said, you thought maybe they got rid of the trowel because it was kind of cheesy in the original, but I think it's actually pretty effective in the original, and a lot of people are scared of that scene still.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense, though, because especially before Land of the Dead came out, there's nothing in the films before that showed the zombies using any type of weapons to attack.
So it's kind of like going back.
So it's kind of like, and this is what we were talking about earlier, like the canon doesn't make sense in the original, like, so why does she kill Helen with a trowel instead of biting her?
They were retconning that a little bit.
It's because the reason is because at the time they couldn't do that. They couldn't show the effect of her biting and eating Helen. By dawn they could do that and effectively. So I think that totally has to do with just kind of a retcon of like, well, no, she wouldn't kill her with a trowel because that's not what zombies do, especially in the beginning when they don't have.
And they're hungry, so they're really more interested in actually eating things. So, but I do like that trowel scene a little bit more in the original.
They do pay homage to the trowel too, because you do see it on the wall and you see the blood splatter onto it. So it's like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, yeah, we know.
And that's one thing I do like about this film, too, is that Romero's kind of like winking at himself there. He's got the naked zombie. Actually, he's got 2 naked zombies, so he kind of goes a little bit further than that. And then he's got sort of like, he's still got they're all messed up. He's got a lot of that stuff going on. So I like that. I like how he's kind of, winking at himself a little bit, and it's a fun way to pick out, this was in the original. They've kind of done it a little bit differently, but I don't think it's particularly as effective, and that may just be because of nostalgia, for one thing, of just looking back on Night of the Living Dead, and you're kind of perhaps people who saw 1990 Night of the Living Dead would be more apt to say this one is their favorite as opposed to the 1968 version because that's just one that they know better. I don't know. But so that'd be interesting too to hear from people whose first experiences with Night of the Living Dead was actually the remake rather than the original. I'm sure there are some, people.
Probably there's got to be some, but I don't think there's that many though.
No, but I would say that there's probably some who first experienced this and then were, kind of disposed to go back and watch the original. So I'd be interested in hearing about what they think about this film and comparing it to the original and what they think is better. But other than that, I would still recommend this film. I was expecting actually something a little bit worse than what I got. With Tom Savini not really directing that much, it's kind of like a crapshoot. Like, is it going to be really poorly paced and off, or does he do a good job with it? And I think for a first time director, he does a good job with it. But that's also because he's kind of got a blueprint too. So you can't give all the credit to Tom Savini. Part of it has to come from Romero as well. So, but yeah, other than that, this is surprisingly one remake that we've really enjoyed so far. It as well, but it's a little bit different in that it's more modernized. But obviously, we're going to cover in Remakeoween. We're going to cover more films that we don't particularly like as much. Which it kind of the fun of it for October, which we're kind of saving like the best ones, and when I say best, I mean the worst ones for October.
We know what sells.
That's right.
Nobody wants to, especially like a podcast, like a video review. Nobody wants to hear like an hour of glowing like with this.
I loved it.
Red Letter Media and like that guy with the glasses didn't make their bones from fucking
doing like well, that was great.
Or not only that, middling reviews.
Yeah, those are the hardest, to be honest with you. The ones that are just like, well, it was fine. And then you're like, well, what else do I have to say about it?
If you're gonna do a middling review, you have to kind of like blow it out of proportion, like the things that you dislike, and at the end, you're like, it's okay.
Yeah, right. You really gotta like go exaggerated.
You got a hard sell.
People are gonna think like, well, this guy really didn't like it.
And then it's like,
it's mediocre. Yeah. What's next week for us?
You want me to choose?
Yeah.
I got two.
Long silence.
Well, I'm just thinking, because I'm thinking of the ones that we discussed.
Yeah.
House on Haunted Hill?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. That'd be a fun one.
I'm going to have a lot of nostalgia with that one.
That is a lot of nostalgia. Yeah, I think that would be a fun one.
What an oddball one, too. How many people do you see? See, this is also, too, I gotta tune in. We're unique. How many people are going out there reviewing the fucking 2001 House on Haunted Hill? Or is it 99?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't remember, but that one I think is going to be a lot of fun. I actually haven't seen that one in a little while. And so it'll be really fun to watch it because we also did the original House on Haunted Hill. We've got a theme going on, but the reason why we're doing these two that we've like recently watched and done on the podcast, the original versions, is because that makes it easier for us to compare them too. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. We're almost doing like a secondary episode to that original film, and then also comparing it to the new film.
It was 99.
So we're going.
I feel like it came out in 2001 though.
Going to the late 90s. That'll be fun.
Stereotypical, black rapper will be in it.
I can't wait. I hope there's like
Chris Kattan. Why?
Chris Kattan.
Why?
Somebody thought he was like a great role for this. He's like, who we need for this?
Pre-Corky Romano. When he's
we
still
need
on SNL.
Chris Kattan for this one. Some casting director said that.
Well, it's kind of like casting directors when they cast Molly Shannon in like random roles. It's like
I think she just drops by their house until they say yes.
Or is that like shows up to shooting at like the food court and like Molly, what are you doing here? Like, oh, I'm in the role. Like, no, you're not. Like, and again, it's like, all right, she won't leave.
Yeah. All right, so we're doing House on Haunted Hill next week. That is going to be a really fun one, so you won't want to miss that. So definitely subscribe to us on iTunes, any other podcasting app that you use. Give us a nice rating and review. It helps us stay motivated. You can find us on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. Obviously, you can find our page, Blood and Black Rum Podcast, at WordPress.com. We're also on Cultsploitation Podcast Network at Cultsploitation.com. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. You can let us know what you think about the show. Give us some recommendations for films that we'll cover after Halloween, because we've got a full slate right now. And then also, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/bloodandblackrumpodcast. You can donate to us, send us any donation that you choose. Remember, that's a monthly donation, so don't overdraw on your account. We don't want that. We want you coming back for more, not overdrawing. So thank you for listening to our episode on Night of the Living Dead 1990. We hope you enjoy our Remakeoween series so far, and we'll be back next week with House on Haunted Hill for Remakeoween number 4. So we hope you stick with us, and hopefully you're celebrating Halloween already, even though it's only September. So you have fun with that, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.